Did you know that dogs can be music lovers too? This question might seem strange, but research shows that our four-legged friends can indeed distinguish music and have their own musical preferences. Today, we'll dive into the amazing world of sounds that opens up to a dog's ear and find out what music makes tails wag and what makes them hide under the bed. We'll look not only at scientific research but also real stories of canine music enthusiasts, reveal the secrets of music therapy for our four-legged friends, and even learn whether dogs can distinguish musical instruments. First, let's understand how dogs perceive sounds. Unlike humans, dogs' hearing works across a much wider range of frequencies. While humans hear sounds within the range from 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz, dogs can detect frequencies up to 45,000 Hz. Imagine this. They hear approximately twice as many sounds as we do. This feature defines their musical tastes. But it's not just about the frequency range. Dogs can also distinguish sounds that differ in pitch by just 1/8 of a tone, while humans can distinguish sounds that differ by at least 1/16 of a tone. This is a fantastic ability that makes dogs' perception of music incredibly detailed. The structure of a dog's ear also plays an important role in sound perception. Dogs have 18 muscles in their outer ear, compared to only 6 in humans, which allow them not only to accurately determine the source of sound, but also to literally tune in to certain frequencies. When you see a dog tilting its head and turning its ears like satellite dishes, know that it's really trying to catch all the nuances of sound. Dogs don't just hear sounds, they perceive them in a special way. Interesting fact, music sounds different to them than it does to us. What seems harmonious and pleasant to us might seem chaotic and irritating to dogs, and vice versa. This is because dogs have a different heart rate and breathing frequency, and these parameters influence rhythm perception. A calm, medium-sized dog's heart beats at approximately 70 to 120 beats per minute, which is significantly faster than a human's. Therefore, music that seems rhythmic and dynamic to us might sound slow and drawn out to a dog. Another factor influencing music perception is the difference in how the brain processes sound information. Dogs have a more developed right temporal lobe of the brain, responsible for emotional perception of sounds, but a less developed left temporal lobe, responsible for analytical perception. Therefore, the emotional coloring of music is more important for dogs than its structure or complexity. Scientists from the University of Glasgow in Scotland conducted an experiment during which they played different musical compositions to dogs and observed their reactions. The results were extremely interesting. It turned out that classical music, especially works by Bach, Mozart, and Debussy, has a calming effect on dogs. When Bach was playing, dogs barked less and spent more time in a state of rest. But heavy rock and metal caused anxiety and distress. The animals became nervous, paced around, and even howled. Dogs had a particularly negative reaction to music, with high levels of distortion, distorted guitar sound, and overly loud drums. 50 dogs of different breeds and ages participated in this study, and each was played 5 compositions from various genres for 10 minutes each. Researchers recorded indicators such as heart rate and breathing frequency, body movements, ear and tail position, vocalization, and general behavior. For the purity of the experiment, special soundproof rooms with controlled temperature and lighting were used to exclude the influence of external factors. But the real discovery was that there exists special music created with dog perception in mind. Pianist and researcher Lisa Spector developed an entire album called Through a Dog's Ear. This music is adapted specifically for a dog's hearing. It has simpler melodies, a slow tempo, and clean sound without complex harmonies. The story of this album began with an observation of Lisa's own dog, which always calmed down when the owner played certain compositions on the piano. Intrigued by this phenomenon, Spector turned to neurologist Susan Wagner, who specializes in animal behavior. Together, they conducted a series of experiments during which it was established that dogs respond best to music that's specially processed in certain ways. First, they simplified harmonic structures, removing overly complex chords and modulations. Second, they slowed the tempo to 60 to 70 beats per minute, corresponding to the heart rate of a relaxed dog. Third, they emphasized low and middle frequencies, removing high ones that dogs might perceive as alarming. Finally, they used predominantly piano music, as this instrument creates a clean, easily perceptible sound. The results exceeded all expectations. In 85% of cases, dogs listening to this music showed signs of relaxation. They would lie down, close their eyes, and their breathing would become more measured. This music proved especially effective for dogs suffering from anxiety disorders and phobias. Dogs, like humans, have individual musical preferences. Some love reggae. Its measured rhythm and deep bass create a sense of security. Interestingly, a study conducted in an animal shelter showed that when reggae was playing, dogs became calmer and less anxious. This study was conducted in a Scottish homeless animal shelter over 2 months. Every day, dogs were played music of different genres for 3 hours, after which their behavior was observed for another hour. Among all genres, reggae caused the most noticeable reduction in stress levels in the animals. Dogs not only barked less and showed less aggression, but also made contact more readily with shelter staff and potential adopters. This led to the adoption rate increasing by 30% during the experiment. Soft jazz also appealed to many four-legged friends, but pop music, strangely enough, didn't evoke much reaction. Dogs remained practically indifferent to it. Perhaps this is because modern popular music contains too many electronic sounds, which dogs perceive as unnatural. Case Warner, a professor of behavioral neurobiology from Harvard University, explains this phenomenon as follows. Dogs evolved alongside humans for thousands of years, but electronic sounds appeared only a few decades ago. Their nervous system is simply not programmed to perceive such sounds as natural or meaningful. Unlike sounds from natural instruments, which still have some similarity to natural sounds, synthesized sounds represent something completely new for dogs' evolutionary experience. Interestingly, some dogs demonstrate a clear preference for certain musical instruments. Research conducted at Tokyo University showed that many dogs react positively to the sound of flute and violin. Perhaps this is because these instruments have a timbre similar to high vocals, which dogs associate with friendly communication. But dogs often approach sounds from brass instruments, especially trombone and tuba, with caution. Low buzzing sounds might remind them of large predators growling and instinctively be perceived as a potential threat. However, with gradual introduction to such sounds, many dogs begin to perceive them neutrally or even positively. Now let's talk about how you can use music to improve your pet's life. If a dog experiences anxiety during thunderstorms or fireworks, calm classical music can help it relax. Many veterinarians recommend playing specially selected compositions to drown out frightening sounds and distract the animal's attention. Dr. Victoria Voith, a veterinary behaviorist from the University of California, recommends starting music therapy in advance, before the beginning of an event that might cause stress for a dog. If you know there will be a thunderstorm or fireworks in the evening, turn on music an hour before the expected start. This will help the dog relax in advance, and when the frightening sounds begin, it will already be in a calmer state, advises Dr. Voith. She also recommends gradually increasing the volume of music as the potentially stressful event approaches, but not making it too loud. The goal isn't to completely drown out external sounds, but to create a sound background that the dog will associate with safety and comfort, explains the specialist. Music can be useful in everyday life too. For example, if you need to leave your dog alone at home, play something calm. This creates a sense of presence and helps avoid so-called separation anxiety. Some owners note that their pets even fall asleep to certain melodies, just like children to lullabies. The story of a Labrador named Max from New York became a real internet sensation when his owner installed a surveillance camera and discovered that the dog always falls asleep when the song Let It Be by the Beatles begins playing on the radio. The owner decided to conduct an experiment and created a special playlist of songs by this band. It turned out that Max only responds to Let It Be and remains indifferent to other compositions. Now, before leaving for work, she always plays this song, and Max sleeps peacefully until her return. An interesting point. Dogs can associate certain music with specific events. If you always play the same composition before a walk, the animal will start to associate this music with the upcoming trip outside and will react to it with enthusiasm. Thus, music becomes a kind of signal that helps structure the dog's day. Professor Alexandra Horowitz, a specialist in canine cognition from Columbia University, explains this phenomenon as follows. Dogs are masters of associative learning. Their brain constantly looks for patterns and connections between events. If a certain sequence of sounds, music, regularly precedes a pleasant event, the dog will quickly learn to associate one with the other. This is a kind of conditioned reflex, similar to what Pavlov described, only instead of a bell, a musical composition is used. This technique can be used in training as well. For example, calm, slow music can become a signal for rest and relaxation, while more rhythmic music signals active games or activities. The main thing is to be consistent and always use the same music for the same situations. But there's a flip side. Some sounds can cause stress and discomfort in dogs. Loud music with sharp changes in volume, high frequencies, and aggressive rhythms can harm a dog's sensitive hearing. Remember that dogs hear much better than we do. So what's merely loud for a human can be painful for a dog. Here's what Dr. James Serpell, professor of ethics and animal welfare from the University of Pennsylvania, says about this. We often don't realize how sensitive dogs are to sounds. In the wild, their ancestors used hearing as the primary means for detecting danger and hunting. This sensitivity has been preserved in domestic dogs. Music that merely sounds loud to us can be literally physically painful for them. According to Dr. Serpell, constant exposure to overly loud sounds can lead not only to temporary discomfort, but also to irreversible hearing loss in dogs. This is especially true for certain breeds with particularly sensitive hearing, such as Border Collies, Australian Shepherds, and Shelties. You should be especially careful with music containing sounds reminiscent of danger signals in nature. For example, hissing or high-frequency whistling. Dogs are evolutionarily programmed to react to such sounds as threats, so they can cause intense fear and stress. An interesting study was conducted at the University of Colorado, where scientists analyzed dogs' reactions to various sound effects often found in modern music. It turned out that sounds imitating snake hissing or insect chirping caused immediate alertness and increased stress levels in dogs. Even if these sounds were integrated into a pleasant melody, dogs still reacted negatively to them. Did you know that dogs can sing along to music? This is not a myth. Some breeds, especially Huskies and Malamutes, are known for their tendency to howl in time with melody. This doesn't mean they don't like the music. Quite the opposite. They feel the rhythm and try to join the musical collective. In the wild, wolves use howling for communication over long distances, and domestic dogs have retained this characteristic. A husky named Mishka from San Francisco became an internet celebrity thanks to her ability to sing to music. Her owners noticed that the dog starts howling when she hears certain melodies, especially those with sustained high notes. They created a YouTube channel where they posted videos of Mishka's performances. A video where the husky sings along with her owner to the famous song Rise Like a Phoenix became particularly viral. The video garnered more than 20 million views and attracted the attention of scientists studying the musical abilities of animals. Dr. Charles Snowden, a primatologist and neurobiologist from the University of Wisconsin, became interested in this phenomenon and conducted a series of observations of singing dogs. He notes, "Howling is a natural form of communication for dogs. When they hear certain musical sounds, especially long notes in a high register, this can activate their instinct to join the chorus. This doesn't necessarily mean they don't like the music. Rather, they perceive it as a form of social interaction. There's even such a phenomenon as music therapy for dogs. In some veterinary clinics and shelters, specially selected music is used to reduce stress levels in animals. Studies show that after sessions of such therapy, dogs experience a decrease in cortisol levels, the stress hormone, and an increase in the production of endorphins, happiness hormones. At the veterinary clinic Paws and Tails in Seattle, music therapy has become standard practice. Before operations and during the recovery period, dogs are played specially selected compositions. According to the clinic's chief veterinarian, Dr. Emily Chang, this significantly reduces the need for sedatives and accelerates the healing process. We've noticed that dogs who were played music before, during, and after surgery returned to normal activity on average 20% faster than those who underwent standard procedures without musical accompaniment, says Dr. Chang. Music with a frequency of 80 beats per minute, which corresponds to the heart rate of a calm dog, proved especially effective. We use works by Bach, Mozart, and modern compositions specially created for animal music therapy. Now let's take a more detailed look at which specific genres and works dogs most often enjoy. Let's start with classical music. Mozart's works with their clear structure and harmonious sound calm dogs' nervous systems. Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata also has a soothing effect. And Vivaldi's Four Seasons, with their changing tempo, evoke interest and curiosity in four-legged listeners. Researchers from the University of Granada in Spain conducted a curious experiment. They played various works of classical music to a group of 30 dogs and observed their reactions. The most positive response was evoked by Mozart's Eine kleine Nachtmusik, Schubert's Ave Maria, and Bach's Air on the G string. These works are characterized by smooth melodic lines, absence of sharp transitions, and harmonious sound. Interestingly, works from the Romantic era, such as symphonies by Brahms or Tchaikovsky, caused anxiety rather than relaxation in dogs. This is probably due to the more complex harmonic structure and emotional intensity of this music, which dogs may perceive as too intense. If we talk about more modern compositions, soft instrumental music in the New Age style often appeals to dogs. These melodies usually have smooth transitions, absence of sharp sounds, and pleasant, harmonious sound. Compositions by Yanni or Enya could be a good choice for your pet. Dr. Susan Wagner, a veterinary neurologist and co-author of the study The Effect of Music on Dog Behavior, notes, New Age music often includes elements of natural sounds, water noise, bird singing, rustling leaves. These sounds are evolutionarily familiar to dogs and perceived by them as safe. In addition, such music usually has a predictable structure without abrupt changes in tempo or volume, which also promotes relaxation. Regarding vocals, dogs generally respond better to female voices. This is because the high frequencies of a female voice are closer to the sounds that puppies make, and thus are instinctively perceived as safer and friendlier. An experiment conducted at the University of Lincoln showed that dogs demonstrate higher levels of oxytocin, the attachment hormone, when listening to female singing compared to male. However, this doesn't mean that male singing causes a negative reaction in dogs. Baritone and bass can also be perceived positively, especially if the singer uses a soft manner of performance without sharp transitions and excessive expression. Many dogs respond well to jazz ballads performed by singers such as Frank Sinatra or Nat King Cole, but it's not only Western music that can appeal to dogs. Traditional Asian melodies played on flute or harp can also have a calming effect. Their meditative character and absence of sharp transitions create a comfortable sound environment for a dog's sensitive ear. Particularly interesting were the results of a study conducted in Japan, where dogs were played traditional music on the shakuhachi, bamboo flute. 80% of the animals demonstrated signs of deep relaxation. They lay down, closed their eyes, and their breathing became measured. Researchers attribute this effect to the special timbre of the instrument, which creates harmonious overtones that beneficially affect the nervous system. Speaking of ears, different dog breeds may perceive music differently due to the peculiarities of their auditory apparatus structure. Dogs with large upright ears, such as German Shepherds or Dobermans, are usually more sensitive to sounds than breeds with drooping ears like Spaniels or Bassets. This should be considered when choosing music for your pet. Dr. Peter Pongrach, a researcher from Budapest University, explains, upright ears act as natural antennas, capturing and amplifying sound waves. Dogs with such ears can perceive a wider range of frequencies and better distinguish nuances of sound. At the same time, they often exhibit a more pronounced reaction to both pleasant and unpleasant sounds. On the other hand, drooping ears create a kind of barrier that partially muffles sounds. This is an evolutionary adaptation that helps certain breeds, for example hounds, to concentrate on smells without being distracted by extraneous noise. Such dogs may be less receptive to music in general, but better tolerate loud sounds. A dog's age also affects musical preferences. Puppies are more receptive to diverse sounds and may show interest even in quite active music. Older dogs, on the contrary, usually prefer calm, measured melodies that don't require increased concentration. A study conducted at a veterinary clinic in Portland showed that dogs older than 7 years demonstrate the most positive reaction to classical music and react negatively to modern genres with a fast tempo and complex rhythmic pattern. Puppies under 1 year, on the contrary, often show interest and curiosity about diverse sounds, including pop music and even some forms of electronic music. Dr. Linda Tell, a specialist in pet gerontology, explains this phenomenon as follows. With age, a dog's nervous system becomes less flexible and more sensitive to stress. Older dogs adapt worse to new or intense stimuli. Therefore, they prefer more predictable and calm sounds. In addition, many dogs develop presbycusis with age. age-related hearing loss, especially in the high-frequency range, which also affects their perception of music. How can you tell if a dog likes the music you've turned on? Pay attention to body language. If your pet is lying relaxed, its breathing is even, and its eyes are half closed, most likely it enjoys the music. If the dog starts walking restlessly, pins its ears back, yawns frequently, or tries to hide, the sound is causing discomfort, and it's better to turn off this composition. Dogs can demonstrate their musical preferences in more subtle ways, too. For example, slight twitching of the ears in time with the music may indicate that the dog is listening attentively and analyzing the sounds. Tilting the head to one side usually indicates heightened interest and an attempt to better discern the sound pattern. But if a dog frequently licks its lips or shows a calming yawn, a special yawn with turning of the head away, this may be a sign of slight discomfort, though not severe stress. Dr. Sophia Yin, a specialist in animal communication from the University of Vienna, suggests a simple test to determine a dog's attitude towards certain music. Turn on the composition and move away from the sound source. Observe whether the dog will independently approach it or, conversely, move away. If the pet voluntarily stays near the speaker or even lies down next to it, this is a clear sign that it likes the music. Some dogs may demonstrate their interest in music more actively, tilting their head, listening to sounds, or even approaching the sound source. This is a good sign. It means your pet is interested in what it hears. A golden retriever named Charlie from Boston became famous on social media for his unusual reaction to music. Every time his owners played classical music, especially Mozart's works, Charlie would sit right in front of the speaker, tilt his head to the right, then to the left, and seem to carefully analyze each measure. Neurobiologists who studied videos of Charlie suggested that such behavior does indeed indicate active perception and processing of musical information by the dog's brain. Interestingly, the dog's mood also affects the perception of music. If the animal is excited or agitated, even the calmest music may not have the desired effect. Therefore, it's best to play music in a relatively calm environment when the dog is not too active. Dr. Marina Desjardins, a veterinary psychologist, explains this phenomenon from a neurophysiological perspective. When a dog is in a state of excitement, processes related to the sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, dominate in its brain. In such a state, the perception of external stimuli, including music, is noticeably distorted. The brain filters information, discarding what is not directly related to the source of excitement. Therefore, even the most harmonious and calm music may be perceived as background noise or ignored altogether. It's best to start music sessions when the dog is already a bit tired after a walk or play. In such a state, its nervous system is more receptive to the calming effect of music, and the effect will be more noticeable. Now let's talk about how to properly organize music sessions for your pet. First, you shouldn't play music too loudly. What sounds moderate to the human ear can be deafening for a dog. A good indicator is the ability to have a normal conversation with the music on. If you don't need to raise your voice, then the volume is suitable for the dog as well. For different breeds, the optimal volume level may differ. Small dogs with large upright ears, such as Chihuahuas or Papillons, are usually more sensitive to loud sounds. For them, the volume should be minimal. Medium and large breeds with drooping ears may comfortably perceive louder music, but still, you shouldn't exceed 50 to 60 decibels, approximately the level of a quiet conversation. Second, it's best to start with short music sessions, gradually increasing their duration. This will allow the dog to get used to the new experience and not experience stress from an excess of sound stimuli. 10 to 15 minutes at the beginning will be quite sufficient. Dr. Rachel Casey, Director of Canine Therapy at the Dogs Trust in Great Britain, recommends the following approach. Start with 5 minutes of calm music on twice a day. Observe the dog's reaction. If you see signs of relaxation, gradually increase the duration of sessions by 2 to 3 minutes every few days until you reach 30 minutes. If the dog shows signs of discomfort, return to a shorter duration or try different music. Third, it's important to create a comfortable environment. Make sure the dog has the opportunity to go to another room if it doesn't like the music. Don't force your pet to listen to something that causes it discomfort. This will only create a negative association with music in general. Prepare a cozy place where the dog can relax during listening. This could be its favorite bed or mat located at an optimal distance from the sound source. Not too close, but not too far away. Some dogs prefer to listen to music in a semi-dark room, especially when it comes to relaxing compositions. There are special music playlists and even entire albums created with dog perception in mind. They are available on various streaming services and can be a good starting point in your pet's musical education. Some companies even produce special speakers for dogs, tuned to frequencies that are most comfortable for canine hearing. Such dog speakers usually have a limited frequency range from 500 to 20,000 hertz, and special speakers that minimize sound distortion. Some models are also equipped with motion and noise sensors that activate music playback when the dog shows signs of anxiety. For example, starts barking or pacing around the room. There are even special smartphone applications that analyze a dog's behavior through the camera and select music depending on its state. For example, if the algorithm determines that the dog is excited, it automatically plays calmer, slower compositions. If the pet seems gloomy or inactive, the application may suggest more rhythmic and energetic music. But remember, like humans, dogs are individual in their preferences. What one dog likes may completely fail to impress another. So, experiment, observe your pet's reaction, and compile a personal playlist, taking into account its unique tastes. The story of a Jack Russell Terrier named Jack from Sydney is a vivid example of dogs' individual musical preferences. His owner, a professional musician, noticed that Jack showed unusual interest in cello playing, but remained completely indifferent to violin or piano. Intrigued by this observation, she decided to conduct a home experiment and played recordings of different instruments to Jack. The results confirmed her observations. The terrier actively responded only to the sound of the cello and preferred Bach's works to all other composers. If we summarize all the research in this area, we can highlight several universal recommendations. First, it's preferable to choose music with simple, repetitive melodies, without complex harmonies and sharp transitions. Second, the tempo of the music should be calm, close to the heart rate of a relaxed dog, approximately 60 to 80 beats per minute. Third, it's better to choose compositions with a minimal amount of electronic sounds and effects, giving preference to natural instruments. Research shows that music with the following characteristics most often evokes a positive reaction in dogs. Tonality. Major keys such as C major or G major are perceived more positively by dogs than minor ones. Instrumentation. String instruments, especially violin and cello, piano, woodwinds, flute, clarinet, are usually preferred over brass or percussion. Structure. A predictable structure with clear repetition of musical phrases is better perceived by canine hearing. Dynamics. Minimal differences between the quietest and loudest parts of a work. Dr. Deborah Wells, a psychologist from Queen's University Belfast who studied the influence of music on dog behavior, notes, "Our research shows that even if dogs don't have an aesthetic perception of music in the human sense, they definitely react to its structural elements, rhythm, tempo, frequency range. These reactions have a physiological basis and are related to the influence of sound waves on the nervous system and internal organs. Music can become not only a means of relaxation for your dog, but also a way to strengthen the bond between you. Listening to pleasant melodies together creates shared positive experiences and strengthens the emotional connection. Some owners note that regular music sessions help them better understand their pet's mood and state. Dog trainer and behaviorist Karen Pryor, a pioneer in the field of applying positive reinforcement methods in training, recommends including musical rituals in the daily routine. Set aside 10 to 15 minutes a day when you will listen to calm, pleasant music together with your dog. Sit next to your pet, gently stroke it. Create an atmosphere of calm and security. Such moments not only help the dog relax, but also strengthen your mutual attachment, creating positive associations with each other. Some dog owners tell of touching moments when their pets, hearing a familiar melody, come and lie down nearby, as if inviting them to listen together. Such moments become especially valuable in the modern world, where we are often in a hurry and devote little time to simple, calm communication with our four-legged friends. In homeless animal shelters, music therapy is becoming an increasingly popular method of improving the psychological state of dogs. Volunteers note that regularly playing calm music helps reduce stress levels in animals, makes them more open to communication with potential adopters, and even reduces the frequency of conflicts between dogs. At the Happy Tail Shelter in Portland, music therapy has become an integral part of the rehabilitation program for dogs that have experienced abuse or other traumatic situations. The shelter director, Maria Thompson, says, "We've noticed that dogs who regularly listen to specially selected music recover psychologically faster. Their anxiety levels decrease, their appetite improves. They begin to show interest in the surrounding world and people." This is especially important for animals that have experienced violence and lost trust in humans. In conclusion, music can truly enrich the lives of our four-legged friends. It can help them cope with stress, overcome anxiety, relax after an active day, or simply gain new experiences. The main thing is to be attentive to your pet's reactions and select music taking into account its individual characteristics. Dr. John Bradshaw, an anthrozoologist and author of the book Dog Sensory, concludes, "Music is a universal language that overcomes interspecies barriers. Although dogs perceive it differently than humans, it is still capable of touching them emotionally and physiologically. By offering our pets diverse musical experiences, we not only improve the quality of their lives, but also open a new dimension in our relationship with them. So next time you turn on music, pay attention to your four-legged friend. Perhaps you'll discover that you have common musical tastes, or maybe you'll have to compromise and create a special dog playlist. In any case, it will be a fascinating journey into the world of sounds that opens up for those who hear with their heart, not just their ears." Professor Emily Bird, a specialist in animal cognitive abilities, concludes our conversation about music for dogs with this thought: "Perhaps the most amazing thing about this topic is that it makes us, humans, look at familiar things in a completely different way. Trying to understand how music sounds to a dog's ear, we learn to go beyond our own perception and recognize that other beings may perceive the world quite differently than we do. This is a valuable lesson in empathy, that goes far beyond our pet's musical preferences. Thank you for your attention. If this information was useful to you, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And in the comments, tell us what music your four-legged friend prefers. Until next time, in the world of amazing discoveries about our beloved pets.